The soft sound of heels scraping against the pavement pulled me from my restless sleep. I glanced at the clock, 6:17 a.m. My chest tightened. Charlotte had left the apartment nearly 12 hours ago, dressed to perfection in a sleek scarlet dress and those stilettos she adored. She barely spared me a glance before walking out the door, ignoring my concerns about the so-called get-together at her friend Olivia's place. "I just need a night out," she'd said, her tone sharp. "You're overthinking this. It's just a few friends catching up. Don't be so controlling." Her words had stung more than I let on, but I'd held my ground. I told her I didn't think it was a good idea. We needed time together, not apart. Things had been tensing between us for weeks, and a party with Olivia, the queen of bad decisions, didn't seem like the way to fix it. But Charlotte dismissed my worries, brushed past me, and slammed the door on her way out. Now, as I stood by the window watching her approach, I couldn't help but notice how different she looked. The woman I'd kissed goodbye last night was poised, confident, and glowing. The woman stumbling up the driveway now, a complete stranger. Her scarlet dress was wrinkled and askew, her makeup smeared into dark shadows around her eyes, her usually perfect hair hung limply over her shoulders. She held her shoes in one hand and her phone in the other, staring at the ground as if it held all the answers to life's problems. I opened the door just as she reached it. She didn't even look up. "Morning," she muttered, her voice hoarse and dry, as though she'd been screaming or crying all night. "Morning," I replied, my voice cold. "Where were you?" "Olivia's," she answered quickly, almost too quickly. Her go-to alibi. It used to work on me back when I didn't know better. "Olivia's," I crossed my arms and leaned against the door frame, blocking her path. "You were at Olivia's all night?" "Yes," she snapped, finally looking up at me. Her eyes were bloodshot, and I could see a faint tremor in her hands. "Can I come in, or are you going to interrogate me on the porch?" I stepped aside without a word, watching as she stumbled past me into the living room. She dropped onto the couch like a puppet with its strings cut, burying her face in her hands. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, and full of unspoken accusations. I leaned against the wall, arms still crossed, and watched her. She didn't move, didn't say anything, and didn't bother to offer an explanation beyond her weak claim of spending the night at Olivia's. Something was off. Something was very, very wrong. "You look like hell," I said, breaking the silence. I didn't mean it as an insult, just an observation. She flinched but didn't respond. "Charlotte," I continued, my voice firm now. "What happened last night? Why didn't you answer your phone?" "It died," she mumbled, her voice muffled by her hands. "Convenient," I muttered, more to myself than to her. She heard me anyway and shot me a glare, but it lacked her usual fire. "I don't want to do this right now," she said, her tone weary. "I'm tired, Alex. Can we talk later?" "Sure," I replied, pushing off the wall. "We can talk later. But just so you know, I'm not stupid. If something happened last night, if you did something, you better tell me now." Her head snapped up, and for a brief moment, I thought she was going to say something, to confess. But then her face hardened, and she shook her head. "There's nothing to tell." "Fine," I said, my voice calm but icy. "Go get some sleep. We'll talk later." I watched as she stood, swaying slightly, and made her way upstairs without another word. The moment her door closed, I pulled out my phone and opened Olivia's social media. I didn't want to play detective, but something told me the truth wouldn't come from Charlotte. Whatever happened last night, I'd find out. And when I did, I'd be ready. The apartment was eerily quiet after Charlotte disappeared upstairs. I sat on the couch where she'd slumped just moments ago, staring at the faint imprint she'd left in the cushions. My gut churned with unease, something wasn't right, and the gnawing suspicion wouldn't let me rest. Grabbing my phone, I opened Olivia's account. If Charlotte was telling the truth about being at Olivia's all night, there had to be something to back it up. Olivia wasn't exactly subtle when it came to documenting her life online. A selfie here, a boomerang there, her stories were usually filled with evidence of every event she attended. Sure enough, there were several new stories from last night. The first one was harmless, Olivia posing in front of a table covered with drinks. The caption read, "City vibes, no drama." I clicked through, watching as she panned her phone around the room, showing a group of friends laughing, drinking, and posing for photos. Charlotte wasn't in any of the shots. The next story was a short clip of Olivia dancing with some guy I didn't recognize. The timestamp showed it was posted just after midnight. Again, Charlotte was nowhere to be seen. Then I hit the third story, and my heart skipped a beat. It was a blurry video of Olivia and a group of people taking shots, and there in the corner of the frame was Charlotte. She wasn't drinking or laughing like the rest of them. Instead, she was standing close to a man I didn't recognize, too close. Her body language was off, leaning toward him, her hand briefly brushing his arm. The clip ended before I could analyze it further, but it was enough to set my blood boiling. Who was he, and why was she acting like that? I kept scrolling, but there were no more posts with Charlotte in them, nothing else that could give me answers. I tossed my phone onto the coffee table and rubbed my temples. My thoughts were racing. Could it have been innocent? Maybe he was just a friend, someone she hadn't mentioned before. But if that were the case, why would she look so guilty when she came home? Why the defensive attitude? I decided to give Olivia a call. She and I were never particularly close, but we'd exchanged numbers a while back for emergencies. It took a few rings before she picked up. "Alex," she answered, her voice groggy. "What's up?" "Hey, Olivia," I said, keeping my tone as casual as possible. "I just wanted to check in about last night. Charlotte said she was at your place. Did everything go okay?" There was a pause, just long enough to make me uneasy. Yeah, she was here," Olivia said, but her voice had an edge of uncertainty. "Why? Did something happen?" "She came home looking rough," I said, choosing my words carefully. "She's been acting strange since she walked in the door. I was just wondering if you noticed anything unusual." Another pause, this one stretched even longer. "No, she was fine," Olivia said finally, but it sounded forced. "Maybe she just drank too much. You know how she gets sometimes." I didn't believe her for a second. "Right. Well, thanks. Let me know if anything comes to mind." "Sure thing," she replied, but the hesitation in her voice was undeniable. I hung up, my frustration mounting. Olivia was lying. I didn't know why or what she was covering up, but it was clear she wasn't telling me the whole story. I needed more information, and I wasn't going to get it by sitting around waiting for Charlotte to wake up. A sudden idea struck me, Charlotte's phone. She'd left it charging in the kitchen. I hated the thought of snooping, but after everything that had happened, I felt justified. If there was something on her phone that could explain her behavior, I needed to see it. I walked into the kitchen and spotted her phone on the counter, plugged into the charger. My heart was pounding as I picked it up and pressed the home button. Of course, it was locked. Her passcode hadn't changed in years, but my fingers hesitated over the screen. Did I really want to go through with this? Yes. I needed answers. I entered the code, and the phone unlocked. The first thing I checked was her text messages. There were the usual threads with friends and family, nothing out of the ordinary. But then I noticed a conversation with a name I didn't recognize, Liam. The messages were brief, but they told me everything I needed to know. "Liam, can't wait to see you tonight. You look amazing in that dress." "Charlotte, stop, you'll make me blush, winky face." "Liam, meet me outside around 11. We'll have more fun away from the crowd." "Charlotte, sounds perfect. Don't be late." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My hand tightened around the phone as I scrolled through the rest of the conversation. It wasn't overly explicit, but it was clear enough. Charlotte had planned to meet this guy. She lied to me, went behind my back, and now she was upstairs, sleeping it off like nothing had happened. I set the phone down, my mind spinning. Confronting her now wouldn't accomplish anything. I needed to be smart about this. If Charlotte wanted to play games, I was going to beat her at her own. And when the truth came out, she wouldn't see it coming. I sat in the kitchen staring at Charlotte's phone on the counter. The text from Liam burned in my mind like a brand. My hands itched to march upstairs, throw the phone at her, and demand an explanation. But a voice in the back of my head stopped me. No, not yet. If I went in guns blazing now, she'd just deny everything or twist the story. I needed a way to make sure she couldn't talk her way out of this. I spent the next hour trying to act normal, cleaning up the kitchen and pouring myself some coffee. Charlotte stayed in the bedroom, and I could hear faint movements as she shuffled around. She didn't come downstairs until almost noon. When she did, her appearance was slightly improved. Her hair was tied back, and she'd washed the smudged makeup from her face, but the exhaustion was still etched into her features. "Morning," she mumbled, grabbing a mug from the cabinet. "Afternoon," I replied, watching her closely. She avoided my gaze and busied herself with pouring coffee. For a moment, the silence between us was unbearable. I decided to break it. "Feel like telling me what happened last night?" My tone was casual, but the weight behind the words was clear. She froze for a split second before forcing a laugh. "What do you mean?" "I told you I was at Olivia's." "And Liam?" I said, dropping the name like a grenade. Her head snapped toward me, her face a mixture of shock and panic. What are you talking about?" I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "You know exactly what I'm talking about, Charlotte. Who is Liam, and why were you meeting him at a party you swore was just a get-together?" Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. For the first time in years, she looked truly cornered. "I saw the texts," I continued, my voice firm. "Don't even think about lying to me right now." Charlotte's face turned pale. She placed the coffee mug on the counter with a trembling hand and finally met my eyes. "Alex, I can explain." "I'm listening," I said, though my patience was hanging by a thread. What she said next would change everything. Charlotte took a deep breath, her hands gripping the edge of the counter as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. "Liam, he's just a friend," she began, her voice shaky. "He's someone I know from a new fitness class. Last night, he happened to be at the party, and we just—" "Stop," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "Don't insult me with 'that's just a friend' line. Friends don't make plans to sneak off together in the middle of the night. Try again." She flinched, her face twisting in frustration. "It wasn't like that, Alex. We were just talking. I needed someone to vent to. Things between us have been so tense lately, and you're always—" "Always what?" I snapped, my voice rising. "Working to pay the bills? Trying to keep this relationship together while you run around with strangers behind my back." "I didn't do anything," she yelled, slamming her hand on the counter. "God, why are you being so paranoid? You're acting like I slept with him or something." Her words hit me like a slap, and for a moment, the room was completely silent. Her eyes widened, realizing too late the implication of what she just said. "So, you didn't sleep with him?" I asked, my voice dangerously calm. "But you thought about it, didn't you?" She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her hesitation said more than words ever could. I felt my chest tighten, a mix of anger and heartbreak surging through me. This wasn't just a misunderstanding, this was betrayal, plain and simple. "I can't believe this," I muttered, running a hand through my hair. 6 years of our lives, Charlotte. 6 years, and this is how you repay me." "It wasn't like that," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I swear, Alex, it didn't mean anything. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking." "Save it," I said, cutting her off. "I'm not interested in excuses. If it didn't mean anything, then why hide it? Why lie to my face?" She looked down, unable to answer. Her silence spoke volumes. I stood there, staring at her, waiting for some kind of explanation, some shred of honesty, but it never came. Instead, she just stood there, tears streaming down her face, looking more like a stranger than the woman I thought I knew. I need some air, I said finally, turning toward the door. Alex, please, she called after me, her voice breaking. Don't do this. Don't walk away. But I didn't stop. I stepped outside, letting the cool air hit my face. My mind was spinning, every memory of our relationship now tainted by the thought of her betrayal. I had to figure out what to do next, but one thing was clear, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I walked for hours, letting the fresh air clear my head. The farther I got from the apartment, the more the anger started to mix with something else, grief. Charlotte's face, her tears, her excuses, they kept replaying in my mind. Every step felt heavier, like I was dragging the weight of 6 years of trust and love behind me, knowing it might all be gone when I finally returned home. The apartment was quiet. Charlotte was sitting on the couch, her knees pulled to her chest, staring blankly at the TV. She looked up when I entered, her face streaked with dried tears. "Are you ready to talk?" she asked softly. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I grabbed a chair from the dining table and sat across from her, keeping a deliberate distance. "I want the truth," I said firmly. "All of it. No more lies, no more excuses. Who is Liam, and what the hell happened last night?" She swallowed hard, her hands trembling as she clutched a throw pillow. "Alex, it wasn't supposed to happen like this," she began. "Liam, he's a new coworker. He's been flirting with me for months, but I always brushed it off. I never thought anything of it until..." She stopped, biting her lip. "Until what?" I pressed, my voice icy. "Until things between us started getting strained," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've been so distant lately, always working late, always stressed. I felt like I didn't matter to you anymore. And Liam, he noticed. He made me feel..." "Don't you dare finish that sentence," I snapped, my anger flaring again. "You're telling me this guy made you feel something I couldn't, so you decided to throw everything away for a little attention?" "It wasn't like that," she cried, tears spilling down her cheeks again. "I didn't plan for this to happen. Last night, I had too much to drink, and when he showed up at Olivia's party, we started talking. One thing led to another, and..." "And what?" I interrupted. "Did you kiss him? Did you sleep with him? How far did it go, Charlotte?" She hesitated, her silence cutting deeper than any words. "We kissed," she admitted finally. "But that's all. I swear, Alex, that's all that happened." I stared at her, searching her face for any sign of deceit. A part of me wanted to believe her, to believe that it hadn't gone further, but another part of me, the part that had seen the texts and watched her crumble under the weight of her own guilt, wasn't convinced. "And you expect me to believe that's where it ended?" I asked, my voice low. "That nothing happened after you planned to sneak off with him?" Her eyes widened in panic. "I didn't sneak off. I told him it was a mistake and walked away. I swear to you, Alex, I ended it before it went any further." "Convenient," I said bitterly. "You ended it only because you got caught, didn't you?" Charlotte broke into sobs, but I didn't feel the usual urge to comfort her. Instead, I stood up and walked to the kitchen, needing a moment to collect myself. Her words swirled in my head, and I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than she was admitting. I grabbed her phone again, scrolling through the texts with Liam one more time. There were no explicit details, but one message caught my eye, a simple text sent hours after she came home. "Liam, last night was unforgettable. Wish we had more time together." I stormed back into the living room, holding up the phone. "Explain this," I demanded, my voice shaking. Her face went pale, and for a moment, she looked like she might faint. "Alex, Save it," I said, cutting her off. "I'm done listening to your lies. You want to fix this? Then start telling me the truth. All of it. Because right now, Charlotte, you're losing me. The weight of my words hung in the air, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. But whether that fear was for losing me or being exposed for whatever else she was hiding, I couldn't tell. One thing was certain, I wasn't stopping until I knew everything. Charlotte sat frozen on the couch, her eyes locked on the phone in my hand. Her lips quivered as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out. The silence was deafening, each second stretching like an eternity. I'm waiting, I said, my tone sharp. Tell me the truth, Charlotte. All of it. Or do I have to call Liam myself? Her head snapped up, panic flashing across her face. No, don't. Don't call him, Alex, please. Then start talking, I demanded, because that message doesn't exactly scream, it was just a mistake. She buried her face in her hands, her body trembling as sobs racked her frame. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her, but the memory of that text and her lies quickly snuffed out any sympathy. This was her mess, and I wasn't about to let her dodge accountability. I didn't plan for this to happen, she choked out finally, her voice muffled. I swear, Alex, I wasn't looking for anything, but Liam, he kept pushing. He said all the right things, made me feel like I wasn't invisible anymore. And last night... Stop blaming me for your choices, I interrupted, my anger flaring again. You felt invisible? You think that justifies sneaking around with another person? I'm not blaming you, she shouted, looking up at me with tear-streaked cheeks. I'm blaming myself. I know I screwed up, okay? I know I betrayed you, but it wasn't supposed to go this far. Define this far, I said coldly. What exactly happened after you kissed him? Did you go somewhere else together? Did you sleep with him? Her shoulders sagged, and she let out a shaky breath. No, we didn't sleep together. I swear. We kissed, and he wanted more, but I couldn't do it. I told him it was wrong, and I left. That's the truth, Alex. I studied her face, searching for any sign of deceit. She looked sincere, but then again, she'd been lying to me for weeks. Trusting her now felt impossible. And the text? I asked, holding up her phone again. What about that? If it was such a big mistake, why is he saying it was unforgettable? Why didn't you block him the moment you came home? She bit her lip, hesitating. I don't know, she admitted quietly. Maybe he thought it meant more than it did. I didn't respond. Her explanation sounded weak, but I had no concrete proof to refute it. My chest tightened as the weight of the situation sank in. Whether or not she was telling the full truth, the fact remained, she'd crossed a line, and our relationship would never be the same. I can't do this right now, I said, turning away from her. I need some time to think. Alex, please, she begged, her voice breaking. Don't walk away. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this. I'll cut him off. I'll go to counseling, anything. Just don't give up on us. I didn't respond. Instead, I grabbed my jacket and keys and walked out the door, leaving her sobbing on the couch. I needed space, clarity, and above all, a plan. If Charlotte wanted to fight for our relationship, she'd have to prove she deserved that chance. And I wasn't going to make it easy for her. As I drove aimlessly around the city, my phone buzzed with a new notification. It was a message from Olivia. Hey, Alex. Can we talk? I think you should know something about last night. I pulled over, my heart pounding. Whatever Olivia had to say, I had a feeling it would either confirm Charlotte's story or completely unravel it. Sitting in my car, staring at Olivia's message, I felt my heart race. Whatever she wanted to say couldn't be good. I took a deep breath and replied, I'm listening. What do you need to tell me? Her response came almost immediately. Not over text. Can you meet me? It's important. Reluctantly, I agreed. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. The drive there felt endless, my mind spinning with worst-case scenarios. What if Charlotte had lied about everything? What if the situation was even worse than I'd imagined? When I arrived, Olivia was already seated in the corner, nervously stirring a cup of tea. She looked up as I approached, guilt written all over her face. "Thanks for coming," she said softly, motioning for me to sit. "Just tell me what's going on," I said, my voice flat. "I don't have the patience for small talk." Olivia winced but nodded. "Okay, look, I wasn't going to get involved, but after last night, I feel like I have to." I leaned forward, my pulse pounding in my ears. "Go on." She hesitated, then took a deep breath. "Liam wasn't supposed to be at the party. I didn't invite him. Charlotte did." Those words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What are you saying?" I asked, my voice low and dangerous. "She told me not to say anything," Olivia continued, her hands trembling around her cup. "She said you wouldn't understand. But Alex, she planned to meet him there. They weren't just talking. They were all over each other. At one point, they went outside together for almost an hour. I don't know what happened, but when they came back, things were tense." My chest tightened, and I struggled to keep my composure. "Why didn't you tell me this sooner?" "I didn't want to get in the middle of it," Olivia admitted. "But when I saw how upset you were this morning, I couldn't stay silent. You deserve to know the truth." I sat back, my mind reeling. Charlotte had lied to my face again and again. The kiss she'd admitted to was just the tip of the iceberg. Whatever happened outside with Liam was the real story, and I intended to find out. "Thank you," I said finally, standing up. "I appreciate you telling me this." Olivia reached out as if to stop me. "Alex, please, don't do anything rash. Charlotte messed up, but I think she's genuinely sorry. Maybe you two can work through this." I didn't answer. The anger boiling inside me was too strong to trust myself with words. Instead, I walked out of the cafe, my jaw clenched and my mind set on one thing: confronting Charlotte. When I got home, Charlotte was sitting at the kitchen table, her head buried in her hands. She looked up as I entered, her eyes red and swollen. "Alex, She started, but I cut her off. "Save it," I said sharply. "I talked to Olivia." Her face paled, and she visibly recoiled. What did she say?" "She told me you invited Liam to the party. She told me you were all over him and that the two of you disappeared outside for an hour. Care to explain that?" Charlotte's lip trembled, and for a moment, I thought she might try to deny it, but then her shoulders sagged, and she let out a shaky breath. "It's true," she admitted quietly. "I invited him. I don't know what I thought. I just wanted to feel something again." "And what happened outside?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Don't you dare lie to me, Charlotte." Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "We kissed again." He wanted more, but I stopped him. "I swear, Alex, that's all that happened." "Do you really expect me to believe that?" I snapped. "After all the lies? After everything I've found out? Why should I trust you now?" She broke into sobs, collapsing into the chair. "Because I'm telling the truth this time. I know I've made mistakes, but I didn't sleep with him. I couldn't do that to you." Her words hung in the air, but they brought me no comfort. The damage was done. Whether or not she had slept with Liam didn't change the fact that she had betrayed me, lied to me, and shattered the trust we'd spent years building. "I need space," I said finally, my voice cold. "Don't follow me, don't call me. Just leave me alone." Without waiting for a response, I walked out the door, leaving Charlotte sobbing at the table. I didn't know what my next move would be, but one thing was certain: things could never go back to the way they were. I drove aimlessly for hours, my mind spinning with everything Olivia and Charlotte had revealed. The betrayal was one thing, but the lies, layer upon layer of deceit, were what cut the deepest. How could someone I trusted so completely do this to me? By the time I parked the car, the sun was setting, casting long shadows over the neighborhood. I wasn't ready to go home, not yet. Instead, I walked into a small cafe, ordered a coffee, and sat in a booth by the window, staring out at nothing in particular. That's when an idea began to form, a way to make Charlotte truly understand what she'd done without stooping to her level. By the time I got home, it was late. The apartment was dark, but I knew Charlotte was still awake. I could hear faint movement upstairs as I stepped inside. For a moment, I considered going straight to bed, avoiding her entirely. But no, this needed to be handled now. She was sitting on the edge of the bed when I walked in, her face pale and tear-streaked. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a mix of guilt and desperation. "I thought you weren't coming back," she said softly. "I almost didn't," I replied, keeping my tone even. "But I've been thinking about us, about everything." Her face lit up with a flicker of hope, but I wasn't done. "I decided I'm not going to scream or fight or do anything to hurt you, Charlotte. That's not who I am," I continued. "But I also can't pretend like everything is fine. You've made your choices, and now I'm going to make mine." "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. "It means that for the foreseeable future, I'm stepping back," I said firmly. "You want to fix this? Fine, prove it. You'll go to counseling, you'll cut Liam out of your life completely, and you'll be the one to rebuild the trust you destroyed. But don't expect me to be the one chasing you." Her face crumpled, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "Alex, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to counseling. I'll delete his number. I'll do anything to make this right. We'll see," I said coldly. Actions speak louder than words. The next morning, while Charlotte was still asleep, I began putting my plan into motion. I wasn't looking for revenge in the traditional sense, no shouting matches, no dramatic confrontations. But I wanted her to feel the weight of her decisions, to see what it felt like to live in the shadow of doubt and betrayal. First, I called Olivia and thanked her for being honest with me. Then, I reached out to Liam. I didn't want to confront him, I wanted him to know I was aware of everything. A simple, measured message was all it took. "Liam, this is Alex. I know what happened. Stay out of my girlfriend's life. Consider this your one warning." His response was predictable: silence. A coward like him always folded when confronted with accountability. Next, I set up a meeting with a relationship counselor, not for Charlotte and me, but for myself. If she wanted to join later, that would be her decision, but I wasn't going to wait around for her to decide whether I was worth the effort. My focus now was on healing, whether that meant repairing the relationship or walking away from it entirely. When Charlotte woke up and came downstairs, she looked at me like she was waiting for another fight, but I stayed calm, collected. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, sliding a piece of paper across the table toward her. It was a printout of the counseling appointment I'd scheduled. "You'll go to this with or without me. If you skip it, we're done." She nodded, her hand shaking as she clutched the paper. "I'll go. I promise." "Good," I said, standing up. "Because right now, Charlotte, I don't trust you. And if you want this to survive, you need to earn that trust back." Her tears started again, but I didn't stick around to comfort her. Instead, I grabbed my keys and left, leaving her alone to sit with the consequences of her actions. For the first time since all this began, I felt a sense of clarity. I wasn't going to let her lies define me. Whether or not we stayed together, I knew one thing: I deserved better. And now it was up to Charlotte to prove she was willing to be that better person or let me go for good. This story depicts a relationship unraveling under the weight of secrecy, evasion, and partial truths, culminating in the discovery of an emotional and physical boundary crossing with Liam. From the perspective of an attentive observer, the narrative reveals how accumulated unspoken tensions erode trust long before any explicit act occurs. Weeks of growing relational strain, with Alex noting increased distance but framing it primarily as Charlotte needing time apart rather than mutual disconnection. Charlotte's dismissive response to expressed concerns: "You're overthinking this. Don't be so controlling, which reframes care as control and shuts down dialogue. The choice of company, Olivia, described as the queen of bad decisions, and the late-night get-together that lacked transparency about attendees. Her return home visibly altered, wrinkled clothing, smeared makeup, hoarse voice, trembling hands, paired with an immediate fallback alibi, Olivia's, delivered almost too quickly. Inconsistent stories, phone died, vague explanations, and Olivia's hesitant, uncertain confirmation when directly asked. Post-discovery, the continued presence of Liam's messages, including one sent hours after Charlotte returned home, and her delayed admission that she had invited him. These signals were present in real time but were rationalized as stress, fatigue, or overreaction. Alex demonstrates several areas of selective perception. He registers discomfort, chest tightening at 6:17 a.m., gut churning, yet initially accepts surface explanations without probing further. He hesitates before checking the phone, acknowledging the moral weight, yet proceeds only after external cues accumulate. Moments of potential honest conversation are deferred. He allows Charlotte to go upstairs to sleep without pressing, says we can talk later, and walks away during confrontations to get some air or drive aimlessly. This pattern of withdrawal creates space for partial confessions while postponing full accountability. The blind spot lies in attributing Charlotte's behavior mainly to external factors, party, alcohol, Olivia, rather than examining the relational vacuum that preceded the night in question. He also underestimates how his own late work and stress contributed to her feeling invisible, though he later recognizes this intellectually. The core violation extends beyond the physical act, admitted kissing, possible deeper involvement during the hour outside. It encompasses premeditated secrecy, planning to meet Liam away from the crowd, inviting him to the party, and maintaining flirtatious texting, "Can't wait to see you. Don't be late." Layered deception, multiple false alibis, minimization, just a friend, just talking, just a mistake, and deflection onto alcohol or relational tension. Erosion of agency and responsibility. Charlotte repeatedly externalizes, "I was drunk, you've been distant," he kept pushing, without owning the choice to engage and conceal. Post-betrayal continuation, failing to block contact immediately and sending or receiving messages that undermine claims of remorse. The cumulative effect is not merely emotional pain but the destruction of shared reality. Alex can no longer take Charlotte's words at face value. Before revelation, a slow drift marked by unspoken resentment. Alex's focus on stability, working to pay the bills, keep this relationship together, inadvertently widens emotional distance, leaving Charlotte feeling unseen. She responds by seeking validation externally rather than voicing needs directly. Communication becomes defensive and accusatory, with concerns labeled as control. The bond is still intact but brittle, sustained by habit and 6 years of history rather than active repair. After revelation, the dynamic shifts to power imbalance and guarded confrontation. Trust collapses into interrogation, partial admissions, and repeated testing of truthfulness. Alex moves from reactive anger to measured boundaries, demanding counseling, no contact with Liam, and observable behavioral change, while withholding emotional availability as leverage. Charlotte oscillates between collapse, sobbing, pleading, and minimization. The relationship enters a liminal state, not fully ended, yet no longer reciprocal. Both parties confront the gap between the image of their partnership and its reality, with Alex prioritizing self-protection and individual clarity over immediate reconciliation. In the end, the story illustrates how betrayal often surfaces not as a sudden fracture but as the visible crack in a foundation already weakened by avoided conversations and unaddressed needs. What remains is the quiet recognition that rebuilding, or releasing, requires more than regret. It demands consistent alignment between words, choices, and the courage to face discomfort together rather than apart. The outcome hinges less on the past act than on whether both can tolerate the uncertainty of starting over from honesty.